Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight here. Ms. Sheila Webster from the Conflict Resolution Center is going to be presenting mediation and introduction this evening, and I can't be more excited. Just a little bit about Ms. Webster before we begin. Sheila has years of previous experience in the corporate world, managing people, projects, and situations. The uncertainty of 2020 allowed Sheila to pivot her time and energy to the nonprofit sector and do work that is good for her heart. She is excited about sharing how CRC St. Louis can bring peace to the greater St. Louis area. And I am excited to turn this over to Ms. Sheila Webster from the Conflict Resolution Center. Go ahead and take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm not sure if you're here in a proactive or reactive manner. I know that sometimes conflict happens every day in different ways. It can be decisions on what you're going to wear to work that day, or maybe what time you're going to go to bed at night. So I just want to talk about mediation, an introduction, a little bit about CRC. We've been around for a couple of years. We are located in the city of St. Louis. Our office is actually at the CIC CET building, which is near South Sarah and Forest Park Parkway. We do a lot of our work remotely. And I'll give you our website and our information at the end. But if you have two screens or want to look, our URL is crcstl.org. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think everyone can see the screen, right? It's mediation and introduction. Our mission is to empower communities and people through mediation. At CRC, we're community members and peers. So we're just people in St. Louis, same as you, but we are educators and we're learners on conflict resolution skills, tools, and techniques. We are big advocates for neutrality and fairness. And we are supported by the City of St. Louis Department of Human Services. Mediation is a voluntary, facilitated conversation between parties involved in a dispute. Our mediations are guided by trained professionals. It's definitely confidential, and it's mutually controlled by the participants. We do like to hold it in a neutral location. So it could be at our office or maybe at someone's workplace. We have other places like libraries or other sites that we can have that at. Or we can definitely do it through Zoom. We've done a lot of mediations through Zoom. I will tell you that we usually like our mediations to go no longer than 2 hours. So the mediations will be like from 1 to 2 hours per session. Now, the conflict may not get resolved in that first mediation. So what we would do is set a time for a second mediation. But usually after the first 2 hours, people are kind of tapped out and it's time to kind of take a break and step back and reevaluate and come back possibly if need be for another mediation. Mediation, some of the rules that we like to share is that mediation is confidential. I know I said that before, but we'll kind of keep repeating that because it's really important. You want it to be confidential because you're kind of expressing all of your feelings or your thoughts, and we want people to be really open and feel safe with what they're saying. There is no discussing or discussions pertaining to the session with anyone outside of the session. All the notes are destroyed that are made during mediation and no recordings are made. Our organization is obligated to report any threats of violence. So that's just to be known. Like I said before, our mediators are just ordinary St. Louis citizens, but they're also volunteers, or they could be compensated contractors. We have a variety of mediators. They come from inclusive backgrounds, and a lot of them all of them are professionally trained in mediation. Some of them hold other degrees. They're definitely unbiased and neutral. This is what's very interesting, because a lot of times people will think that a mediator is someone who will figure out your dispute. between two people. But we are there just to be a third party neutral and to be a sounding board for getting out what is the root of the conflict, or what people are feeling, or what someone said made someone else feel. Sometimes it might be things at work, or it could be a landlord-tenant dispute, or it could be an employer-employee. But the mediator helps in drafting the agreement. They're kind of the director, but they definitely guide the process, but they don't give legal advice, and they don't tell people what they should do, if that makes sense. So we encourage our participants to kind of come to the table when they come to mediate with some ideas and thoughts about what they would like the outcome to be. And maybe they get one or two of the items on their list, but not all of those. But the mediator is there, again, to help in drafting the agreement and to ensure confidentiality and safety. Okay, now here's what's interesting and what type of mediations that we do at CRC STL. So we can do workplace and employment. There's issues that we mediate and issues that we don't for workplace and employment. The ones that we do mediate are relationships with coworkers or supervisors, things that deal with fairness and consistency and regulations, physical work environment, and working conditions. And I apologize if you keep seeing me going to this side, because I want to see everybody on the Zoom on this screen, and I have my slideshow on the screen. So I'm trying to kind of balance the two of them. Here's some issues that we don't mediate. Civil Service Commission cases, discrimination, or like EEOC claims. When there's classification of positions, your work has places in classifications. That's not something that we can help to mediate. Similar to like department structure, how things are laid out and how departments are structured. Certainly employment status. However, I'll go back to that one for a minute. Service ratings, examinations, and benefits. So things that are a little bit more structured within the company. When we talk about this employment status, though, we did mediate once where a gentleman thought he was wrongfully terminated, and he was confused. And I don't know that it was really termination, because the employer said that he quit. So there was a lot of gray area in kind of what happened. And I think it was because it was like a heated argument that day. And so the company was actually out in Hazelwood. And so they were in the county, but the employee was a city resident. And so we were able to mediate on their behalf for being in the city. And so I know that they kind of came to a conclusion for that. And I believe it took 2 mediations, but it was really nice to be able to help. This is one that we do quite a few, and we work with the neighborhood improvement specialist for the city of St. Louis, and the police, the fire department, the Citizens Bureau. All of those places will forward people. A lot of older people will too. But when there's neighbor to neighbor or roommate mediations, people complain sometimes about property lines. If someone's put a fence, or someone's driving their car over someone else's grass, or their guests are parking there. Barking dogs, we've had a lot with pet issues between 2 neighbors. If there's damage, property damage, like that car on the lawn, or if there's noise, a lot of traffic, things like that. We've been super instrumental at CRC in the mediation between landlords and tenants. We've had a couple of news stories, but most importantly, we show up at the courthouse and on Fridays for the pro se docket. Pro se means when either side is representing themselves. And so when the landlord comes and the tenant comes and there's no attorneys. And so we come to those dockets to try and get those tenants, especially with COVID and all of this rent relief going on, to get them into the right place to get the funds so they can stay, and we can mediate that. We also will do common issues such as security deposits, maintenance, and rent. A lot of times communication will break down between the two, And we've really opened the doors for a lot of landlords and tenants on both sides. We're neutral, so we're not landlord friendly or tenant friendly. We're just very neutral, and we want to bring peace to everyone and get things back on the right track. And we've seen that before. We'll see sometimes where a tenant will withhold rent because the landlord's not doing the maintenance, and the landlord's withholding the maintenance because the tenant's not paying the rent. And so we can kind of open up those doors. We've done a lot with people for security deposits when they go to move out afterwards, or breaking leases. And so sometimes anger gets in there, and it's affecting people's lives and where they're moving and how that is in the landlord's pocket. So it's really nice to have somebody to go to at no charge that can help to pull it back together and to get everybody on the right track there at the end. On this slide, I also want to just kind of hit back on that eviction prevention, the mediation program we had previously done through the CARES Act. And to provide, we had some rental assistance, but mostly we were able to connect people with agencies that had rental assistance, and we had a little bit of bridge money. And I think we did over like 1,200 intakes last year alone in 2020. We gave out all the money that we had that was to go straight to the landlords to keep the tenants. And then we currently are working in the courts, and this year we actually have someone in there. We were able to get the funds or a grant to have someone Monday through Thursday in both courts when they're being represented by landlords too. So it's pretty exciting and pretty powerful to help people, whether or not they have an attorney. So a lot of times what happens is there's an imbalance of power. You can probably understand this sometimes when you're in an argument yourself, but think about going into court and you're going in for eviction and you think it's all in the landlord's hands. They have the upper hand and all of that. And you go in and there's someone there to say, hey, let's pull you to a side. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about that. And let's see how we can fix this. So it really helps to empower people and to kind of teach them some good skills, right? About how to handle things kind of in the future and how to fix this to keep the roof over their heads. We also mediate with citizens and police. We're one of 8 in the country that is directly involved, authorized to do police mediations between citizens and police. We did a lot more of this prior to the last election because the Citizens Bureau wasn't functioning, and then it got put back in place, I guess, May or June. And so the people can go through that to make their complaints, but we will still be the mediator of choice for the city. And so if there's any kind of disputes between a police officer and a citizen of something that happened, and one of my coworkers, my director, likes to tell a story of how a police officer came into the mediation one time, in full uniform with his gun. And then the citizen was it's a little bit startling, right? Because it feels like they have a lot of power, like we talked about, and it's a little bit startling. But by the time that they got through all of it, and both sides were able to tell their story, and the citizen was able to kind of share how that police officer made them feel at the incident that happened before, the police officer ended up apologizing. It kind of, I guess you could say, it kind of humanizes, right? People when you get to be able to sit down and just have a kind of that conversation. So that's one place that we like to help out. Here's some reasons why you should mediate, and I've kind of hinted on some of those in the past slides, but certainly the personal growth in handling future conflicts. It kind of teaches you. I know there's no mediation classes or how to handle conflict, and as you go through school, and some of us, it's been a long time since we've been through school, but it's a really great way to kind of think about ways to solve problems. It definitely encourages positive and open communication, and that's something that we've seen a lot of that. My favorite, of course, is that balance of power. It creates an equal balance of power, because when 2 people come in, they're just 2 human beings. no matter what level anybody's at or how that works. We have seen it improve productivity and morale. The nice thing is that then there's no legal fees. So a lot of people like to do that, or cost, compared to arbitration or court if you take something to court. And lastly, of course, it's really good to be heard. If you've ever been in a situation where you can't be heard or you're afraid to say something, our mediations are safe and they're inclusive. So sometimes I have this slide up here, what is conflict coaching? And it says when mediation is not an option, but it's a little deeper than that. Sometimes mediation may not be a success, right? Maybe both parties come to the table and there just can't be a resolve. They're not going to be able to come to a conclusion of something that works for both parties. There's also times when both parties won't come, where just the one person really needs help and to try and figure things out. And so we've kind of crafted this conflict coaching. It's been there, but it's become a lot more successful for us and for our clients because it's a personal one-on-one session with a trained mediator. It's a way to get kind of some advice. It's confidential, it's voluntary, and it's informal. It's empathetic. They have a listening ear to help brainstorm ideas and identify some potential goals. Okay, so maybe he won't waive the whole month of this, but maybe you could do this and this. So it's, when you're doing landlord tenant or anything like that with employee employer, neighbor to neighbor is a big one that we do conflict coaching for now. And it also, again, empowers people and it helps develop the skills for the future for them on the way that maybe that they can use those skills in other aspects of their life. And again, I have a little note down here at the bottom. It's not a substitute for legal advice. We're not here to do anything legal. We're just trying to help resolve conflicts and problems that may come up between people. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen every day because we're all human and humans are very complex. Okay, so here's how to use our services at CRC STL. The first one would be to do our intake. So you can call if you don't have the internet or don't have that handy. And we have a lot of senior citizens that we get that call in to do our intake. Or you can complete the intake form. It's at crcstl.org/intake. We will review the information and then we will assign it if both parties agree to the mediation, because we'll check with both parties. Your case will be assigned to a professionally trained mediator, and then we'll schedule it. We'll schedule an in-person and online mediation session. And I can tell you that the response that we get from our clients is that we are one of the most responsive agencies that they've ever dealt with. We like to get to people really quickly. And so we usually try to respond within 48 hours. And that was even during all of that crazy eviction rental stuff going on during the pandemic. We got to people pretty quick through that. So we just really, it's important because conflict, it can just affect your whole life, everything else that's going on. I have this last slide up. It's just to ask about questions, but I did want to mention that I don't have on this slideshow is that CRC is moving in a couple of other directions. We now have, we kind of do it what's called like a business service or fee for services, where we can go out and do speaker presentations. I can do this presentation like I did tonight for a neighborhood group or someone that you might know that maybe at your work, if you're in the city of St. Louis, we're happy to do this presentation free of charge. But we have two presentations that people have really, really asked for. And so we created these wonderful interactive, just really super insightful and you just get really good residual results from it. The first one is conflict de-escalation. conflict management de-escalation, I should say. And we kind of go through that so we can help create like a workplace that you really want, or maybe it's training for a bunch of your property managers, or maybe it's training for employees or volunteers through a nonprofit. So we can do that. That's a 1-hour session. And we can also do another one that's very popular. It's called Building a More Empathetic Workplace. And that one does kind of a deep dive. And that one's a really neat, I got to be involved in that presentation. That's a 2-hour presentation. So if you know of anyone, my contact information is, I'm just Sheila, SHEILA, at crcstl.org. Or you can go to this info, that email comes to me as well. Feel free to forward our information on those two. And our trainings are either virtually or in person. We can do both. And then last but not least, I want to share something that is really super powerful and very, very exciting is we received a grant for peer mediation. And so we were able to get high schoolers from St. Louis City high schools. I guess it was towards the end of the summer. And we had a kind of a college MBA or master's, I should say MS, social worker person that helped them put together this curriculum. And so we've developed a curriculum for peer mediation, and we're aggressively going after a grant now to be able to provide that to all the St. Louis City schools, because peer mediation is very, very important. It helps to diminish the rates of suspension, expulsion, and violence in the schools. And so what peer mediation is where some of the kids at the school will become the mediators, right? And then they bring the people together, the peers, the teens that are having problems, and they will help to mediate those with them. And there's just some really, really great results out there in the United States. And we're trying to bring that to St. Louis. So that's one of our other endeavors under our umbrella. I'm going to breathe now.
That sounds fantastic. That's exciting news about teens and peer-to-peer mediation.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen, probably a lot of other folks have seen it too, in the news. They've been talking about how a lot of kids with the pandemic have lost some of those social skills that they would ordinarily develop because they're in school learning how to communicate with each other. So that's pretty cool.
I also heard that there was also cyberbullying going on, like kids they felt more empowered to bully, like virtually. And so now getting back in person, they're kind of having to face the music. So some of the schools have kind of contacted us, and the teachers wanted some of this training. And so because it's really rough. I mean, it's a change, right? It's hard.
It is a change. I agree. If anybody who's here with us this evening has any questions, we're kind of a small group, so you're welcome to come off of mute and ask your question, or if you're more comfortable typing it in the chat, please feel free to do so. Sheila's happy to answer some questions, and we definitely have some time. And I am wondering, does the CRC also mediate family disputes sometimes?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I did neighbors and roommates. And so, yes, we've had sometimes family mediations between, a mom and a daughter, and it was like a teenager, older daughter, and kind of roommates. I had 2 sisters one time that they were living in the same house, but one had, it was like a 2-family flat, right? One was up and one was down. And so they had some issues, and they asked us to mediate that. And that's absolutely fine. We can do that. What we can't do is we can't mediate for custody or child, like parenting plans or things like that. That's a different training. Oh, I forgot about our training. Oh, how could I do that? There's my Home Alone face. We train people. If anyone is on here that's interested in becoming a mediator, we're going to have a training session starting again in January. and we train for what is called Rule 17. And that's the training. It's usually a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's 3 days. There is a fee for that. There's some scholarships that'll be available also. But it will take you through all the steps to become Rule 17. And so what we do is more civil. Like, you know, we could probably do almost like small claims things, the things like that, and then all of the mediations that I spoke about. But we really don't dive into the parenting or child custody or plans, things like that. But back to our training, we also have what's called a MAP program, which is a mediator apprenticeship program. So it's not just that you would come and do this 3 days of training in January, then you would be eligible for our MAP program, which is where you could actually practice the mediation in person, like where you would shadow and you would follow, and then you would coach, you know, a couple of mediations, then you would co-chair a couple of mediations, then you would actually host those mediations or be the mediator with someone, you know, watching you do it. So it's wonderful. We give that real life experience after the training to be a mediator.
That might be interesting as a next career.
Or a side, they call it a side gig. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Something to think about. I do have some friends who utilize mediation service to help figure out who was going to get the cats.
Yes, right. Pets. I think that would be really pet mediation. We had a couple of calls on those. Oh, there's something in the chat. How do we get involved in this? Okay, so I guess my question is, as involved, do you want to be involved, like you need our services and you want us to mediate something for you, or if you would like to volunteer, because we do have a volunteer portal too, or you could get trained to be a mediator. So there's a lot of different ways. Oh, the training. Yeah. So I believe it's on our website. And I think you actually sign up under volunteer. On the screen, can you see that? crcscl.org/volunteer. If I'm not mistaken, I'm going to go real quick to the website because every day they're adding more things and not telling me. So I go there and it's like Christmas. Hey, there's another present. But let's see, training. Okay, so yeah, training and education. Yeah, so you go under training and then there's Rule 17 training, fundamentals, all of that. Okay, so, oh, yeah. So you sign up for the monthly newsletter, and I believe in there, yeah, that's where we'll have it for the training. And then you could also sign up for the volunteer part too, and put in there, because there's somewhere, I think it's under the volunteer part that actually has a little portal. Yeah, it says sign up to volunteer, and it has a little thing that I want to get trained. So any of those, yeah, definitely. It's very exciting because it's coming up soon in January. It seemed like it was a long way away, but of course now it's November, mid-November.
It's going quickly this year.
We also have, if you don't want to be a mediator, we're starting a new volunteer program called Voice, which is an outreach for conflict mediation or conflict education. And that would be to do presentations to neighborhood groups to help do like tabling at events. We do some of the festivals and stuff. We'll set up our table. And there's all kinds of, maybe it's stuffing for mailings, things like that. We could always use hands and help with any of those. Oh, you're welcome.
Sheila, when folks volunteer for CRC, can they also get credit if they need to volunteer for, because they're obligated to do so? It's a requirement.
Yeah, that's a great question. Our volunteer program is so new in its infancy. We haven't gotten to that part yet. Okay. We were getting accreditation for our mediation training, you know, for like a extra CLE or something, some those type of credits. So we're trying to get that accredited, but I never thought of that. So I should, we can look into that. I'm going to mark that down. Volunteers.
I get that question quite a bit sometimes. Do I know of any organizations where folks can volunteer for that?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah.
And I want everybody to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So if you haven't already, that's a great place. That is a very great place to see our stuff.
Follow the CRC.
Right.
So now when you first started mediation, what, obviously you had a chance to reflect on what it was you wanted to do as life goes on. What brought you to the CRC and what attracted you to all of this?
Well, if you're talking about me personally, I can tell you that CRC itself started out because of kind of the Ferguson riots. They were looking for something to help with the unrest, right? And so it was more community mediation, and then that police citizen is kind of how it started a little bit. And it was a bigger program, and now it's kind of split. There's a group for St. Louis County, and then we're the St. Louis City go-to. Okay. So that's how the St. Louis part developed for CRC. For myself, but a little bit before the pandemic, I tried to change careers. I was a landlord for 32 years. And so managing multiple properties. And I saw that CRC was going to hire someone to do intake for the landlord tenant because they received the CARES funds. And I thought, well, I could do that. And so, and I loved the idea of going to work for a nonprofit, that's for sure, after so many years of the crazy corporate ladder. So I interviewed for it. They thought it was going to be 20 hours a week. And so I signed up for school as well. And then it just blew up. I mean, I think, we were getting like 50 calls a day. So we had to move everything to intake online, which helped us to align people with the date and time that they called to kind of get everybody in order and all of that. So that worked out really well. But that was pretty much it. And then from there, I love growing businesses. I've been an entrepreneur, and I've started 2 businesses from scratch and sold them successfully. And so that's what I kind of feel like. We're like a baby taking off, here with CRC. And it's just I'm so passionate about the mission that I can't imagine doing anything else. And seeing the success stories, hearing the stuff. We had a senior couple. They lived, they rented a house for 15 years near Ted Drew's, and they were elderly. And their landlord gave them a 60-day notice to move out. Because they were going to sell it. And then I think they decided that, I don't know if it was those owners or the new owners, whoever it was going to take the house down and rebuild, right? Because there's gentrification going on all over there. And my Lord, I think it was a corner lot. So these poor people, though, were so, they just were beside themselves. They didn't even know what to do. There, 15 years they were there, and they were paying, kind of a nominal amount, not super nominal. It was a lot for them, but to try and find a new place to live at that rate was going to be really hard. And to go from a house to an apartment, you could so their children contacted me. The landlord just kept treating it very much like a mechanical, like, oh yeah, we gave them 60 days. That's enough. It was, and this is how they felt. They received it in their minds, like there was no care. There was no personality there. So we were able to end up, we did a lot of back and forth, and we never took it to mediation. The tenants, the couple and their children, did not want to talk to the landlord anymore because they were so personally felt affronted by it. So I got in the middle of it, and I was able to secure them like $1,000 for moving expenses. And they just had to turn in receipts for that. And then they were able to get their security deposit back right away also, because the company said, oh yeah, they'll get it back. It'll be 30 days. I said, well, hold the door. I said, aren't you just going to take the house and, knock it down? I'm like, what do you got to do like with the 30 days? Why don't you just give them their check back? They only, and then I got them a few extra days. That was the other thing, is that they started to fret a lot, and the landlord wanted to charge them for like the extra 5 to 10 days. I'm like, oh, for Pete's sake. I said, no, they're trying to wait there to get the last of their mail and get the utilities turned off. So by us getting in the middle of that, we were able to really help to negotiate. And I think in the end, the landlord was so pleased too, because the last thing they wanted to do is to take them to court, and to get like an eviction on them. And the people, the residents didn't want it either, but they were just so upset by it that it wasn't really out of the question for them. They were like, well, if they're going to get us, they're going to have to take us to court. So trying to keep everything moving along. And the children really, they had to come from out of town, out of state. And they said, without you getting in the middle of this, you helped really save. They said, we might have had to do the physical, but you did a lot of the mental work for our parents. So it was just such a good feeling. It was one of my success stories from last year.
Were you guys able to stop a lot of folks from going through eviction?
Yeah, last year, we saved about 300 families. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. Well, and there were so many agencies that it took them so long, and it may even still be, I think, around the country. It took them so long just to set up systems, right? And paperwork and all this stuff to do things. And we were able to really expedite the funds that we had. We had like last year, we had where we could give like $1,000 to each case, in addition to like their CARES funds. And it was more like bridge money, like, okay, this is going to cover, and we'd have to calculate, okay, you only get up to so much per person. The city, I think, put a number on it rather than number of months, but you need a little bit more, and we can be that bridge. So we worked with some agencies where we would write our check and they would write their check, and all, and so it would clear up everything for the people. And we've had a lot of those tenants come back to us, and for other things, for other subjects or other things they want help or need help with in negotiating in life. But another really great success story out of the evictions that came was, and I think it's this year, the court system and the city saw how powerful the mediations were, that they put a caveat in the paperwork now that when anyone that was to receive the new funds in 2021, there's a caveat in there that those landlords, if they go to try to evict someone again, they have to first go to mediation. So we're hoping,
sounds like a big win.
It was a big win. So we're hoping to, try to keep working on that and to try and get that in more leases, from the very beginning. And we've worked with there's a few really great landlord, Section 8 landlord companies that are out there that put it in the resident handbook and put it in the lease that we're going to try to mediate before we go to court. So it's just a good way to kind of talk it out. And there's just sometimes that untrust. And I think that third party neutral, that's where our strength is.
I have to admit, I was completely unfamiliar with mediation until I saw this is why I reached out to you guys. I saw Channel 5 had done a story about landlord tenant and the mediation and CRC STL. And so that's when I reached out to you, and I'm just so thankful that you guys are there. Yeah. And I feel like I learned a lot.
Well, I appreciate that. We're so excited. I mean, again, that was our initial push of money, right? Was the landlord tenant, the rental funds to help them. But we have people are calling us for so much more that we're just kind of blowing up. And of course, it's residual stuff from the pandemic, right? It's just really life stuff. It happened before, but it seems really more exorbitant because of, we've been living in our homes and now we're coming out and we got to see each other and we got to interact. right? So, and it's just so wonderful to be able to help small businesses that don't have an HR department, uh, and just communities, little restaurants, or any places that just need somebody to help. So it's so every day's a good day for us.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Before we end this call, does anyone have any other questions for Ms. Webster before we sign off? And I thank everyone for coming this evening. Take your time. If you want to come off of mute and ask, please feel free to do so. If you're more comfortable using the chat, feel free to use the chat. I was excited to learn about mediation, and that there are so many things that you can mediate that don't have to go to court. So that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. And I have siblings.
Right.
All right, Ms. Sheila, thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for telling us about the CRC.
Thanks for hosting us. And we have brochures now at all the libraries, and we have posters. Yes. So if anyone has any needs, they can pick one up or grab one when you're out there. And your libraries are beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you everybody for coming. Sheila, we will do this again.
Okay.
And we will talk more about other presentations as well.
Sure.
I think that would be fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for coming tonight. Have a great rest of the evening. Enjoy the weather while you can. Take it easy, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.